A very fine good morning to all. I am N.K. Premachandran, Member of Parliament, representing Kollam Lok Sabha constituency from the state of Kerala. Most respected Professor Rajkumar, the Vice Chancellor, Punjab University, Chandigarh, and the Patron-in-Chief of this event, Mrs. Anu Chatrat, Senior Advocate and Dean, Faculty of Laws, Punjab University, Chandigarh, Patron of this event, Professor Dr. Ratan Singh, Director, University Institute of Legal Studies, Punjab University, Chandigarh, Patron of this event, and Dr. Anju Chowdhury, Event Organizer and Faculty, University Institute of Legal Studies, Punjab University, Chandigarh, and the Student Coordinator, CJPC, and distinguished other members and dear students and friends. It is indeed a privilege and also a pleasure to address you regarding a subject matter which is very significant as far as the law students are concerned. It was planned as a webinar session, interactive webinar session, but unfortunately due to the technical difficulties and due to so many other reasons, we are not able to have a webinar interactive session. That is why I am forced to come as a Facebook Live because of the compelling circumstances or because of the technical reasons. I am not able to come before you to have an interactive, effective, fruitful interactive session. So I don't know how much it will be fruitful and useful having such a Facebook Live regarding such an important subject to be discussed with you. The subject matter of discussion today is regarding the legislative process or making of law. As a parliamentarian, I was asked by the university authorities to speak on the making of law. What is the legislative process by which a law is enacted or a statute is enacted? It is a very important subject. Why? Because we know that day-to-day affairs of the people of this country is being governed by the laws, rules, regulations. Each citizen of the country should know what is the law, what are the rules and regulations, how the law is being made. And I am directly coming to the subject because of the paucity of time and also because of this technical difficulties. I am directly coming to the subject, that is legislative process or making of law. We all know that the parliament is the sanctum sanctorum of the democratic edifice of our country. And Indian democracy is universally accepted as the largest democracy in the world. Not only as the largest democracy in the world, but the greatest functioning democracy in the world, that is being admired by the world at large. Why it is so? Because of the Constitution. I will always say that the Constitution of India, a well-drafted, comprehensive document which is the Constitution of India, which has come into existence in the year 1950, and we are being governed by the Constitution of India. The nation's guardian of the country, the guardian of the nation is the Constitution of India. And the Constitution of India provides a very significant character. Basic characteristics of the Constitution is the separation of power. We are having the judiciary, we are having the executive and legislature. The most significant fact to be noted is that the separation of powers, that means all these organs are independent and supreme in their own space. That is a matter which has been discussed long in the Constituent Assembly as well as even after the Constitution has come into force. So out of which you all know that what is executive and what is judiciary. I am not touching all those aspects. Regarding the legislature means it is the will of the people. So the transactions, the discussions, debates, whatever takes place in the parliament or in the legislative assembly should reflect the will of the people. So in short, we can say parliament is the will of the people. The government is made accountable to the people of the country through the parliament or through the legislative mechanism. One of the important functions of the parliament, I am confining legislature as parliament because it is having two houses, and making of law in parliament is the subject matter which is being discussed today. So that means that one of the major functions of the parliament is making of law, or it is a legislative process. That doesn't mean that that is the sole function of the parliament. There are so many other functions also, but we are confining to the subject, the legislative process. And even it is an accepted principle that the good governance is largely depending on the smooth and effective functioning of the parliament. We are having a good governance means it is not only the executive functions or the judicial functions. If the legislature or the parliament is not effectively and properly functioning, we cannot say that we are having a good governance. So one of the criteria for determining whether it is good governance, that the depending factor is whether the parliament, the legislature is functioning in a proper and effective manner. Lawmaking and legislation entails scrupulous observation of the constitutional provisions, as the constitution is the guardian of a nation. And you see, the evolution of the legislative process in India goes back to the colonial period of British. I'm not going into the historical aspects of those, even the last act of Government of India Act of 1935, that was the final or the last act during the colonial period. You might have studied about it also. So again, when we come back to the legislative process or the functions of the parliament are being governed by, according to me, major factors are: number one is the Constitution of India, and number two is the rules of procedure and conduct of business in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and third one is the directions of the speaker, and the fourth one is the precedents and conventions. These are the four factors by which the proceedings of the parliament is regulated or is proceeded with. See, legislative process, constitution entails, there are certain provisions in the Constitution of India, Article 107 to 111, and so many other provisions, 117 financial, so many other provisions, which empowers the parliament and the state legislature to enact laws or make laws. And also Article 108 of the Constitution empowers the parliament, both houses of the parliament, that is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, even legislative assemblies, to make their own rules. That is why we have made our rules in Lok Sabha. We are having rules of procedure and conduct of business in Lok Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, we are having rules of business and conduct of business in Rajya Sabha. In each respective state legislatures are having their own rules and procedure. These rules and procedure is also having a constitutional backing. That is why I am saying that Article 108 of the Constitution empowers the parliament to make their own rules and rules of procedure so as to conduct the business of the house. Now let us see, then we directly coming to the various stages of lawmaking, how the law is being made. All the legislative proposals are coming before the parliament or the legislature in the form of bills. B-I-L-L-S, bills. So we can say that a bill is a statute in draft, or it is a draft bill. It is a statute, it is a law in draft. A bill becomes a law. As far as the central legislation is concerned, a bill becomes a law when both houses of the parliament passes the bill and been assented by the President of India. When both houses of the parliament, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, passes a bill, it is mandatory. And even after passing of the bill by the parliament, it will not be a law, it will not be a statute, only after it is being assented by the president. When the president gives an assent to the bill which was passed by the parliament, then it will become a law or it will become a statute. See, a bill, when we discuss about the bill and the statute, we have to see that each full stop, comma, each word is very, very important and significant. So, drafting and scrutiny of the bill is very, very important. Even a comma or even a full stop or a semicolon can make differences. Even the interpretation of the statute can be made in so many ways. So, it should be scrupulous scrutiny of a bill is required so as to have a good legislation. Microscopic scrutiny of the each and every provision is each and every clauses of the bill is required. Then only we can say that it is a pakka legislation, it is a good legislation, or it is a perfect legislation. That is why our predecessors, you know that we have adopted the British system, we are having a parliamentary system of governance, and we are following the rules and most of the procedures, bills, everything is of the British system. And we are having, in order to have a scrupulous scrutiny of the bill, there are 3 stages in passing a bill. First stage we can say it as the first reading, second reading, second stage, and the third stage is the third reading. What is first reading? First reading of the bill means first the government has to draft. Suppose if it is a government bill, the government has to, the ministry, the concerned ministry has to make a proposal to the law ministry. And the law ministry, there is a legislative department is there. The legislative department will draft a law according to the whim and fancy of the concerned administrative ministry. That is what we are calling it as a draft bill. That draft which has been drafted by the legislative department of the law ministry, there will be so many discussions of everything. After that it will go to the cabinet. Once the cabinet passes, it will become a bill. Cabinet passes a bills can be introduced in the parliament only after adopting or after approving by the cabinet. After the bill is approved or adopted by the cabinet, the government has got so many options whether it can publish for circulation, it can publish in the official gazette, or directly it can be introduced in the parliament. See, the first stage of the bill, that is the first reading, means introduction of the bill in parliament is the first reading. The minister, prior to the introduction of the bill, before 2 days, the bill has to be circulated among all the members so that the members will be getting an opportunity to see whether such a bill is in compliance with the provisions of the constitution and in compliance with the legislative competence, whether the parliament is having the legislative competence to introduce such a bill. So preliminary discussion will take, not preliminary discussion whether this can be introduced. So first the minister or the concerned member will move a motion for leave to introduce a bill in the parliament. When he moves such a motion, the members in the opposition has the right to challenge the legislative competence of the bill. That means the parliament has the power to legislate on certain subjects. The constitution provides certain provisions, union list, state list and concurrent list. Whether the rules and procedure has already been complied in introducing such a bill, all these technical issues will be discussed at the first stage, that is the first reading, that is introduction stage. When the House gives sanction or then the House gives leaves to introduce the bill, the minister will introduce the bill, that is the first stage. After the introduction on subsequent days, the second stage is the consideration of the bill. That is, we are saying it as second reading. The consideration of the bill have also got 2 stages. The first stage is general discussion on the principles of the bill, or the principles of the bill will be generally discussed, and the government or the minister has got so many options. The government can very well say that maybe it may be directly taken for consideration, or government has got another 3 options also. The mover of the bill has got 3 other options also, but it may be referred to a select committee, or this bill may be referred to a joint committee of both houses of the parliament, or the concerned minister can further move a motion that the bill may be circulated in the public to elicit the public opinion. This is the first stage of the second reading. That means the principles of the bill will be generally discussed, and it can be directly taken for, the minister can move the motion that the bill be taken for consideration, or the minister can refer the bill to the department related standing committee or a select committee of the house, or a joint committee of both houses of the parliament consisting of the members of parliament of both the houses, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, or can circulate it in the public for eliciting the opinion of the public. After getting the report from the concerned committees, the bill will be again considered, it will be again discussed. And the second stage of the second reading, that is a consideration, is the clause by clause discussion of the bill. Each clauses of the bill will be discussed in distinctly, it will be discussed. That is what is called the clause by clause discussion. So the general discussion of the bill, or the bill may be referred to some particular committees, departmental related standing committee or select committee or joint committee of both houses, or it will be circulated to the public for eliciting the opinion of the public. After getting the report, the bill will be discussed again. After the discussion, the bill will be discussed, clause by clause discussion will take place in the clause. That is, you are seeing in the television, clause 1 becomes part of the bill, clause 2 becomes part of the bill. Those who in favor of may say ayes, those who are against may say no. Each clause have to be voted, discussed and voted. This is what is called the second reading of the bill. That is the second stage. That is a consideration. So first stage is the introduction of the bill, that is first reading. Consideration of the bill, that is called the second reading. And we will come to the third reading. Third reading is the passing of the bill. The bill is introduced, objections will be raised, constitutional validity of the bill, legislative competency of the bill will be discussed, the technical issues will be discussed at the first stage. Second stage, elaborate discussion, scrutiny by the parliament committees, and subsequently clause by clause discussions. After that, the bill will be passed in whole. That is what is called the third part, third reading, that is passing of the bill. That the minister or the mover of the bill have to seek the leave of the house to pass the bill. At that time also there is a scope of discussion. What is the scope of discussion? At that time, what would be the implications of passing of this bill? The members of the house can take part in the discussion if this bill is passed. Now you are all suggesting for a bill regarding LGBT, the community, the people belonging to the LGBT. Suppose after all these process, the first reading and the second reading, the third reading, when the minister says that the LGBT bill, the right to marriage and reproduction through assisted means bill, suppose such a bill is drafted by the minister has to say that I move the motion that this bill be passed. When the minister moves such a motion, the members of the house can very well, again getting an opportunity to take part in the discussion, what would be the implications of the bill if this bill is passed. This is the third stage of the discussion, that we are saying it as third reading. When the bill is passed by voting, then the legislative process by the parliament is over. Then the bill will be directly sent to Rajya Sabha. If it is passed by the Lok Sabha, it will be transmitted to the Rajya Sabha. In Rajya Sabha also same process. Rajya Sabha, it is not introducing the bill, it is only placing the bill on the table of the house. After that, the same process will go there also. There also the discussion, clause by clause discussion, and the third reading, everything will go there. The same procedure will be replicated in the Rajya Sabha also. So first it will be passed. Suppose a bill can come both either of the houses, either in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha. You are having the authority to introduce the bill either in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha, except money bills. That I will come later. So House, when the Lok Sabha passes the bill, it will be directly transmitted to the Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha will also have the same procedure according to their rules of procedure and conduct of business in their house. After passing by the Rajya Sabha, both houses after passing, this bill will be sent to the President, His Excellency, the President of India, for his assent. When the President gives his assent or consent or approval, it will become a statute and it will be published in the official gazette. That is what is called a law or an act of parliament or a statute of the country. This is the mere law making procedure, or this is I am talking only a tip of the iceberg. I think that is generally needed, I think. So this is the process by which the law is being made. And now I come to the second part. I hope that you are all capable of understanding. I think that you can have real meaning of what I am saying, I think so. And now I am coming to the other part. What are the types of bills? Mainly two types of bill. One is the government bill and another one is a private member bill. See, government bill means a bill which is being moved by the minister for and on behalf of the government. That is what is called a government bill. Private member bill means a bill moved other than the government, other than the minister, by individual members. They are also having the right to move the bill. You are all well aware about the right of transgender bill. Actually, first it has come in the Rajya Sabha. It is being moved by Sri D.K. Mr. Shiva. He has moved the bill. It was passed in Rajya Sabha. Then it has transmitted to the Lok Sabha. Subsequently, government has come with a new bill. That is the impact of a private member bill. Private member bill is discussed only on one day, that is Friday in the afternoon. That means after 3:30 to 6 o'clock. All Fridays, afternoon, 3:30 to 6 o'clock, the time is exclusively allocated for discussing the private members' business, both private members' bills and the private members' resolutions. That is on Friday. And normally, the government will not allow the private members' bills to pass. But as far as the transgender case is, the right of transgender bill, when it has taken up for consideration in the Rajya Sabha, at that time Arun Jaitley was the law minister in the 16th Lok Sabha. They cannot dispute the bill because it is being moved from the opposition and most of the members have agreed for it. And the government, suppose if they oppose the bill, definitely the message going to the transgender community will be different. So the government was forced to support the bill and the bill was unanimously passed by the Rajya Sabha. Then it has transmitted to the Lok Sabha. There also it was discussed. Normally government won't allow to pass a private member bill. So in order to avoid this, government has brought a new fresh bill regarding the transgender rights and that has been passed. So what is the impact and influence of a private member bill? Very well you can understand. This is having a persuasive effect to the government to come with a legislation. Suppose if I am having an intention to have a legislation on a particular subject, I am having the right to draft a bill. On my aspirations or my directions, I can very well draft a bill. I can introduce a bill. During the private members' time, I can introduce a bill. And it will enlighten the government. It will enforce the government to come out with a legislation so as to address that issue. That is the impact of a private member bill. Normally, with the private members government won't, because always the government is having the majority, they won't allow the private members bill to get passed. Only rare opportunity, only 13 bills have been passed during the parliament's history. If you examine, only 13 or 14 private members bill have been passed by the House. So these are the major classification of the bill, government bill and private member bill. And another categories of bill are, another classification is ordinary bills, money bills, bills repealing ordinances, and constitution amendment bills. These are another category of 4 category of bills. Ordinary bills, you know very well, all the bills will come under the category of ordinary bills. And regarding the money bill, it is a very controversial issue. It is a very disputed fact. What is a money bill? It is always being discussed in Parliament. Article 110, 1 of the Constitution very clearly says something aspects, that is provisions relating to imposition, abolition, remission, alteration or regulation of any tax, and matters relating that financial matters or money matters, then it will be considered as a money bill. Those matters which are elucidated in Article 110 of the Constitution, suppose a bill relating to those issues, that is 110 1A to F, all those bills are considered as money bill. As most of them are taxation, imposition of tax, regulation of tax, and remission of tax, alteration of tax, and financial matters like finance bills, and all these things will come under the category of the money bills. And money bills, there is a significant peculiarity. Money bills can be introduced only in Lok Sabha, because elected members' house is the Lok Sabha. That doesn't mean that it need not go to the Rajya Sabha. It should go to the Rajya Sabha also, but the recommendation of the Rajya Sabha or passing of the Rajya Sabha is not required as far as the money bills are concerned. Who is certifying it as a money bill or not a money bill? It is the prerogative authority of the Speaker to declare or certify that this is a money bill. The Speaker has the absolute authority to declare that this bill is a money bill. That discretion also has got lot of discussions. I have my experience in Parliament at the time of Arun Jaitley, when the money bill, when the finance bill was introduced. Finance bill means financial proposals for the coming year. That is from April 1st to March 31st of the next year. What are the financial proposals? Only financial proposals will come within the purview of the finance bill. Finance bill is a money bill. But during the last time when in Rajya Sabha, the government had no majority. So most of the other issues which are nothing to do with the money bill, those bill also incorporated within the finance bill. I will come to this point. There is a query from one of the students. Can an individual common citizen file a petition before the Parliament on a subject of a public importance? I will come to that. After this money bill, I will definitely come to that point. See, this money bill, I am cutting short it is of that nature. So the controversy was, because if it is a money bill, it need not have the approval from the Rajya Sabha. Since the government had no majority in Rajya Sabha, most of the legislations were incorporated within the finance bill so as to get it passed by the House of People, Lok Sabha, not required the approval of the Rajya Sabha. That has become a big controversy, and so many rulings from the Speaker has also come. That is what is called a money bill. So money bill can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. After Lok Sabha passes the bill, it will be transmitted to the Rajya Sabha. Within 14 days, Rajya Sabha has to return the bill to the Lok Sabha with their recommendation. But the recommendation need not be accepted by the House of the People. So it will be discussed in Rajya Sabha also, then it will be transmitted back to the Lok Sabha. If it is not transmitted to the Lok Sabha, even after 14 days, it will be deemed as been passed. So that is the significance of the money bill. These are the, and another one I have said that ordinances, bills replacing ordinances. When ordinances are pronounced by the President, that ordinance have to be replaced by a bill. That is, bills replacing the ordinance. And the constitutional amendment, that is also coming through a bill. I will take that subject matter afterwards. These are the 4 classifications of bills. in its nature, classification on the basis of the nature. The query I would like to answer, whether an individual common citizen can file a petition before the parliament on a subject of public. Definitely you can. There is a petitions committee there are so many committees in the parliament, petitions committee, assurance committee, and so many financial committees. So petitions committee, any citizen of India can definitely file a petition to the petitions committee. The petitions committee will go through the petition and they will examine the petition, and they call for so they can very well have the right to summon the witnesses, and they can take the evidence. After taking evidence and the thorough examination of the petition, a report will be submitted to the parliament. So the government has to act on the report of the petitions committee. So definitely a citizen has absolute right to file a petition of public importance to the petitions committee. That will be scrutinized by the petitions committee. After that, the petition committee will submit the report to the parliament. Then the government has to act on the petitions committee report, and subsequently the government has to submit an action taken report that has to be laid on the table of the house by the government. So definitely a private citizen has a right to intervene matters of urgent public importance. And coming to the third part, that is what is the format of a bill. I think it is the drafting. A bill should have a long title. Long title means what is the intention of the bill, that will be comprehensively mentioned in the long title. And I can very well cite the example of the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act of 2019. This is a bill. Here the long title, you can see, an act to provide for protection of rights of transgender persons and their welfare and for matters connected therewith and incidental thereto. This is the long title. For what the act, or what is the intent of the act in very short, precise form, that is what is called the long title. It is mandatory and compulsory to have a long title. Then preamble, in certain cases, why the bill is enacted, preamble of the bill, or what is the aim of the bill. In short, very comprehensively, precisely, it will be subsequent to the long title, there is a preamble. And the next one is the enacting formula. Enacting formula means which year this bill is enacted. Be enacted in the 70th year of the Republic of India, that is in the year 2020. It is the 70th year of Republic. So these are compulsory, mandatory, that is you should have a long title followed by preamble, enacting formula, and then comes a short title. Short title, what is meant by short title? Mean this act may be called the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act of 2020. This is a short title. Then comes clauses one by one. Clause 2, clause 3, clause 4, depends. Most of the time, clause 2 of most of the bills, the clause 2 deals with the definitions and various provisions. I am not going to the details. And most of the bills will be having some schedules also. In order to comprehensively mention things, schedules will also be attached. Other mandatory features of the bill are, a bill should be accompanied by a statement of objects and reasons. When a bill is introduced in the parliament, the draft bill should accompany a statement of objects and reasons. The entire spirit and content of the bill can be understood if you read the statement of objects and reasons of the bill. You can never see this statement of objects and reasons in the Gazette publication. When the bill is passed in the statute, it will not be there. But the draft bill will be accompanied by a statement of objects and reasons that will precisely state what are the aims, what are the reasons, what are the objects of this bill. Why we are coming or why we are bringing such a bill before this house. So even if a member who is not well conversant with the provisions of the bill can very well speak on the bill, if we can read and understand what is mentioned in the statement of objects and reasons. that a draft bill should be accompanied by the statement of objection reason. And another thing, a draft bill should accompany, each clause of the bill should be explained. Each clause will be explained. That is notes on each clauses, and that is another chapter which is accompanied by a bill. That is notes on clauses. What is the clause 2? Clause 2 says, and all the such explanatory statement is required for each and every clause. And suppose some authority is being transferred or confined to some other authority, then it should be, that means if you are delegating that power by the provisions of the bill, then memorandum regarding the delegated legislation should also be. What are the reasons by which we are delegating the powers to some other authorities? That should be, a memorandum should be there along with the bill. And another important feature of a bill is, a bill, if it involves expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India, then a financial memorandum should also be there. These are the format of a bill. I am talking of the drafting and the format of a bill. Long title, preamble, enacting formula, short title, clauses, schedules, statement of reasons and objects, notes on clauses, memorandum regarding delegated legislation, financial memorandum if the bill involves any expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India. These are the essential features in which a bill should contain. And the procedure I have already stated. Once again, I would like to see, after the regarding introduction and all these things, so many provisions are there, because 7 days notice is required to the speaker. I need not explain all these things, I think. And how to amend the constitution, that is a very important fact. I think since you are the constitutional students, you should have the knowledge regarding a bill, amend the Constitution of India. In order to amend the Constitution of India, special majority is required. Before that, I have to talk about the voting. At the consideration stage of the bill, each clause should be voted. And the members of the opposition, even the members of the treasury benches, can also move amendments. They can give amendment to the clauses, they can give amendment to the short title, they can give amendment to the schedule. So one of the strongest weapon in the hands of the opposition is to move amendments. Suppose you are having certain constructive suggestions regarding a particular provision, you can very well give a notice of an amendment to that particular provision. You can amend almost all the things. You can amend even the long title, but that has to be voted. That is why we are saying that in the second reading, I have already mentioned the second reading, each clause will be voted. Long title will be voted, short title will be voted, enacting formula will be voted, preamble will be voted. See, the closest scrutiny of how our forefathers or our predecessors, how much care and caution, abundant care and caution they have taken so as to have an effective, fruitful law without any loopholes. So it is a right of the members of the opposition to move amendment to each and every clauses of the bill. You might have seen my interventions in Parliament most of the times by moving amendments. If you go through my official page, NK Premachandran official, my Facebook page, almost all my speeches I have posted in that book. You can very well go through that speeches. Moving of amendments. Moving of amendments means cautioning the government. Suggestions from the opposition. Unfortunately, according to the precedent and experience, our Parliament do not accept amendments from the opposition. That is very bad. That is unfair. Most of the times we have spelt it. Suppose a constructive suggestion is coming from the member of an opposition. What hesitate the government from accepting such suggestion? If it is in support of the government bill, even then the government will not accept, because cabinet has passed this bill, so we have to go back to the cabinet, so we will not accept it. So that's close scrutiny. That is why in my opening remarks I have said that the scrupulous scrutiny of each and every provisions of the bill is required so as to have an effective and fruitful legislation in our country, because it is affecting lakhs and lakhs of people of our country. An enactment made by the parliament, a statute made by the parliament, is concerning the people of the country. So if you are not having abundant care and caution in scrutinizing the bill, after passing the bill, when it becomes a statute, the impact will be very bad, very worse. That is why first reading, second reading, third reading, voting of each and every clause and moving of amendments, and going to the other house, they are also doing the same exercise. The parliamentary standing committee will scrutiny everything. Clause by clause discussion will take place in the parliamentary standing committees and in the select committee or consent committee. That is why we are urging that it should be sent for the committee for close scrutiny of all these bills. So the effort which we are making before passing of a bill is very, very important. That is a hazardous task on the part of the parliament. And coming to the bill to amend the Constitution of India, a special majority is required. In all other bills, simple majority is required. But as far as the amendment of the constitutional provisions, a majority of the total members who are members of the House, plus 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. These are the two criteria by which a constitutional amendment will take place. You know the last amendment, Article 370, that is special provision to Jammu Kashmir. You might have seen the procedure. It is very wonderful procedure. It is very, very academically, if you can take it as a sample case study. Repeal of Article 370 or amendment to Article 370, kindly have a case study. It's very interesting. I'm not going to explain it by a Facebook Live. It will take a lot of time, because Article 330 is amended by the government in a very interesting way. Article 370, Clause 3 of the Constitution says that this provision can be amended or repealed only after getting the approval from the Constituent Assembly of the Jammu Kashmir state. Jammu Kashmir Constituent Assembly is dissolved in the year 1967, I think. So there is no Jammu Kashmir Constituent Assembly. Constituent Assembly means the parliament to make a constitution for Jammu Kashmir. That assembly, Jammu Kashmir Constituent Assembly, is dissolved. By way of a presidential order, by invoking Article 368 or 367, I am not remembering now, the president by an extraordinary gazette order, it has been notification ordered that Constituent Assembly of Jammu Kashmir means the Legislative Assembly of the Jammu Kashmir. Legislative Assembly of the Jammu Kashmir is not in existence now because the presidential rule is there. So all the powers of the Jammu Kashmir State Assembly is vested with the parliament. So the parliament has the authority to amend the constitution, Article 370. This was the position taken by the government. We have distinct opinion, but it was very academically very interesting to learn it as or study it as a unique case by which you will get more authority on the constitution and how the law is being made. So as far as the constitutional amendment, a bill to amend the Constitution of India, a majority of the total members of the House, suppose 543 is the strength of the Lok Sabha, then it requires more than half of the members should vote in favor of the Constitution amendment, and 2/3 of the members who are present in the House. Then only we can have this constitutional amendment, and each constitutional amendment, each provision of the constitutional amendment should be by voting by division. Voting by division means by the voting should be recorded, yes or no, that should be by division. And this is regarding the constitutional amendment. And one more point, I think that is because in the legislative process, another form of legislative process is the ordinance route of legislation. Ordinance route of legislation, you know very well that an ordinance is being promulgated by the President of India when the House is not in session. During extraordinary situations when the government feels that an urgent legislation is required, but we are not able to wait till the Parliament is summoned in such extraordinary situations. Government of India, after the Cabinet approves, the President has the authority to promulgate ordinance by virtue of Article 123 of the Constitution. This is equal to that of an Act of Parliament. When such an ordinance is made or promulgated, when the House is subsequently summoned, immediately after the House is summoned, this ordinance should be replaced by a bill. That is a bill replacing an ordinance. Ordinance route of legislation, we will always say is that it is a legislation brought by the executive. It is a law-making process by the executive. Ordinance is not a law made by the Parliament. It is a law made by the executive. That is, the President is issuing the ordinance or promulgating the ordinance on the advice of the Cabinet. That is not being scrutinized by the Parliament. That is why we are saying that this is a legislation made or brought by the executive. It is not proper and fair. Always we are opposing the ordinance route of legislation. And ordinance has to be replaced immediately when the session is summoned. That ordinance has to be replaced by a bill of the Parliament. That has to be made a statute. According to me, this ordinance route of legislation is not good for a healthy democracy. It is not good. That is my suggestion. Not only my suggestion, so many rulings are also there. This is in general regarding making of a bill, drafting of a bill, making of a bill, bringing of a bill, passing of a bill, and assent given by the President, and making a bill as a law or a statute. And you are all very much interested in discussing about the right to marriage and reproduction through assisted means of the people belonging to LGBTQ. This is a very unique subject. It is a very peculiar subject. You know that recently the Supreme Court has decriminalized the provision section 377 of the Indian Penal Code of 1860. So the draconian provision section 377 has gone, and you know what is 377, section 377 of the Indian Penal Code? Same sex, and that has been decriminalized by section 377. Sorry, that is been decriminalized by the Supreme Court. That is same sex relation. Formerly it was a grave punishment. I think it was a non-bailable punishment. And the last parliament session we have passed the transgender bill, and now you are talking about a comprehensive legislation in respect of the entire community of LGBT. And also this art assistance reproductive technology, that is ATR. That is also very technical. I am not well versed with these facts and figures of all these things. Definitely, if you want to make a law, you can make a law. You can suggest that we would like to have a law on this issue. And if as a member of parliament, if I want to make a law on this issue, definitely I can very well introduce it as a private member bill. And so many proposals are there: discrimination against LGBT community, the right to live in dignity, because in Puttaswamy's case, Justice Puttaswamy's case, the Honorable Supreme Court in 2017 has held that as per Article 21, you know very well that Article 21 is the right to life. Right to life means right to have a dignified life. So definitely right to have equal rights as that of other citizens of the country. People belonging to LGBT community also having the right to have all these rights. Definitely this assisted reproductive technology It's a modern technology. Where LGBT community is also entitled to have the access on ART, assisted reproductive technology. All these are issues, very controversial issues. Suppose if you want to make some legislation on these issues, definitely you can very well suggest it, and as a member of parliament I can very well put it as a private member bill, and the government can be pressurized by moving certain motions and all these things. This is a very important area. It's a grey area as far as India is concerned, because most of the countries, especially the European countries, they have already made legislations accepting the gay marriage and all these things. So many progressive legislations they have made. Our country, it is depending on our circumstances, that has to be. This is in general what I would like to say regarding the drafting of a law and all these things. And so many queries have come in the Facebook. I will take it one by one with your permission. What is the detailed procedure of a private member bill? Means who will initiate the process of such a bill? I have already mentioned that as a member of parliament, private member means it is a right or prerogative right of the member. The procedure is the same, which I have explained. I can very well draft a bill. As rightly I have said that I want to move a bill on right to marriage and reproduction through assisted means bill of 2020. Suppose if I want to make a bill on this issue, I can very well draft a bill and I can submit it to the Parliament Secretariat, and time will be allotted for me to introduce the bill. And consideration and passing of the bill, same procedure which I have explained, but it depends on lot. Lot will be taken, which bill will be taken. So it depends on luck. So it is not easy to get a private member bill to be discussed in Parliament. Very rare opportunity. It only through luck or through lot this is being selected. Procedure is the same as that of the government bill. There is no difference as far as the procedure is concerned. And another question is there a time period for a bill to become a law, such as DNA bill, which has remained a bill for long? No, there is no time period. Suppose a bill is introduced in the House of People in the Lok Sabha. Suppose the House is dissolved, the bill also lapses. A very important question as far as the legislative process. The DNA bill, what you have said is very correct, because so many bills are pending in the House. This bill lapses when the House is, suppose the 17th Lok Sabha, so many bills are pending. If the House dissolves, then the bill lapses. But if you see, a bill which is pending in Rajya Sabha will never lapses, because it's a permanent house. A bill which is pending in Rajya Sabha will never lapses. But a bill which is passed by the Lok Sabha, then transmitted to the Rajya Sabha and pending, and the House dissolves, then that bill lapses. Only those bills which are introduced and under consideration of the Rajya Sabha will never lapses, because Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. So there is no period limitation as far as a bill is concerned. At any time this bill can be taken according to the whim and fancy of the government. Everything is depend on passing of the bill is depending on the aspiration or as per the whim and fancy of the government. That is the fate of the DNA bill also. Explain again, money bill and financial bill, is there any difference? Yes, absolutely there is a difference. It's quite technical. I don't think it can be explained by a Facebook live. What is money bill is, Article 110, one of the Constitution says, I will, if time permits, I will read it. Article 110(1). One second. What is definition of a money bill? See, for the purpose of this chapter, a bill shall be deemed to be a money bill if it contains only provisions dealing with or any of the following matters, namely the imposition, abolition, remission, alteration, regulation of any tax, regulation of the borrowing of money, custody of the consolidated fund of the contingency fund of India, the appropriation of monies out of the consolidated fund of India, the declaring any of the expenditures to be expenditure charged on the consolidated fund of India, and the receipt of monies on account of the consolidated fund of India. All these matters, that is Article 110, all these things, all these matters, any matter relating to all these issues will be a money bill. What is the difference between money bill and finance bill? A finance bill is a money bill. A finance bill means taxation proposals for the next financial year. That is what is called the finance bill. Along with the budget document, when the budget is tabled on the parliament or immediately after the budget speech as well as some documents will be placed on the table of the house. Along with the budget speech, this finance bill will also be introduced. The finance bill will deal about what would be the income tax rate, what will be the excise duty, what will be what is the GST, and all these matters and matters relating to taxation proposals. That is what is called a finance bill. Finance bill will also come within the purview of a money bill. It is having little distinction from the money bill. And financial bill also are of two categories, financial bills of category A and category B. I am not going to explain all this, it will be more complicated. You can very well understand, finance bill means the taxation proposals for the coming next financial year, the matters which are relating to the taxation proposals for the next financial year is a finance bill. And money bill, all these issues which I have already explained. And another question is, explain again money bill and financial. Yes, I already have dealt it. Whether any bill can be published in official gazette without getting assent by the person. No. Any bill can be published. Yes, bill can be published. Bill can be published. Bill can be immediately after passing the cabinet. The bill can be published in the official cabinet for the information of the public at large. Bill is not a statute. Bill is only a draft statute that can be published. Let the people know what is the government to do it. Instead of going to the parliament after passing the bill by the cabinet, that can very well publish in the official gazette just for the information for the public. So it is okay. Yes. Can a petition filed before the parliament be treated as a bill suo moto by the speaker? No. That's nothing to do. Petition has nothing to do with the bill. It is only redressing the grievances of the people, the citizens of the country. It has nothing to do with the legislative process. Then the speaker has no authority to give any direction. Speaker can only give a direction that you should go through the report of the petition of the petitions committee and comply, and then give an action taken report to the house. That only to that extent petition will have the value. Another question is, why is it that the power to introduce the money bill is given exclusively to Lok Sabha? Very good question. Because Lok Sabha is the house by which the members of parliament are directly elected from the people of the country. That means who is forming the government? The Lok Sabha is making the government or forming the government, because only if you are having majority in Lok Sabha, a government can be formed. That means a direct accountability to the house of the people. Suppose you are losing the majority in the house, Lok Sabha, then the government fails. No confidence motion will come. The government fails. That is why money bill, suppose 5 years is over, it will be dissolved. So money bill is a very important bill. Taxation proposals which is directly affecting so many other things, it is directly affecting the people of the countries. That is why it's a uniqueness of the Lok Sabha that all these bills can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha, because it is accountability, the question of accountability. And Rajya Sabha is the council of states. Actually, it is the council of states. You know very well. And that is why the direct accountability, that is, the government is accountable to the people of the country. The people elect the people's representatives in the House of People. That is why the money bill is being introduced in the Lok Sabha. Another question, if money bill can be presented only in Lok Sabha, how finance minister can present budget in case he represents Rajya Sabha? Another interesting question. See, government is government, whether he belongs to Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. You know very well that 10 years of the Prime Minister, 10 years Prime Minister Sri Dr. Manmohan Singh ji, he was not a member of the House of the People. He belongs to the other house. He is a member of the Council of States, that is Rajya Sabha. That is why at that time, in Parliament, the leader of the house was Sri Pranab Mukherjee. Every house has a leader of the house. The major party will select a member as the leader of the house. At that time, Pranab Mukherjee was the leader of the house, leader of the Lok Sabha, because Dr. Manmohan Singh ji was not a member of the House of the People. So it is nothing to do. The government is government. It is entirely different from that of the legislature. That is why I am saying that when the Prime Minister and the ministers, though they are the members of the Parliament, whether belongs to the House of People or belongs to the Council of State, they are part and parcel of the executive. They act, at the same time, they are having a dual role. Actually, they are having a dual role. They are part and parcel of the executive. As members of the Parliament, they are part and parcel of the legislature also. But normally, when they have become the ministers, they are becoming the government. They are government side. This is Parliament. That is the difference. If quorum is not complete, but it is very urgent to pass the bill, becomes of its public importance, then what is the procedure to be followed by the Parliament to complete the quorum on that very day? Suppose nothing to do, the quorum is mandatory. Quorum is compulsory. I think in Lok Sabha it is 54. That is 10% of the total members of the house is the quorum of the particular house. Suppose the 54 members are not present, nothing doing, that is compulsory, that is mandatory. Only provision is the government can invite their members to get it passed. And there lies the role of the chief whip. It is the bounden duty of the chief whip to see that their members are present in the house so as to maintain the quorum. And whose responsibility to maintain the quorum? The primary responsibility is with the government. The government has to see that the quorum is maintained in the house so as to transact the business, because government is having the primary responsibility to maintain the quorum in the Parliament so that business can be transacted in the quorum. Without quorum, nothing, no business can be transacted without the quorum. That is absolute definite. Another question is, sir, can you please tell me about the Gazette? Gazette means it is official notification. It is whatever be the notifications of the government and even private individuals. This is the official publication of the government. That's all. Gazette means it is the official publication of the government. See, for example, if you want to change your name, then that name finally, after all the procedure, you have to publish it in the Gazette, because it's a government publication. Informing the public, these things are being happening in our country. So this is a government publication informing the people at large what is happening in the country. So it's only an official publication. And another question is, sir, can a group of parliamentarians be penalized for delaying the passing of a bill or approval of an amendment which is in public importance? No. It is absolutely the right of the Parliament to see whether this public importance, not important to pass or not to pass. It is the right of the members, nothing to do with no penal provisions can be imposed. And another important question is, why a reference is not called to involve the manner before the introduction of any new law making process? Why a reference is not called to involve the masses, the public, before the introduction of any new law making process? Why should it be the prerogative of the MPs? Though they represent the masses, but they certainly do not represent the intellectuals, current intellectual carriers of the masses. See, there are various procedures. I have already stated in my opening remarks that before after passing the bill by the cabinet or after approving the bill by the cabinet, most of the bill will be published in the official gazette. And the people can make suggestions also to the government. And when it goes to the committee, after the introduction, when it goes to the committee, whether it is department related standing committee or it is a select committee or joint committee, the committee will examine it. You can make represent the intellectual, the so-called intellectuals can very well give representations to the committee, then definitely the intellectual will be called as a witness. The committee will hear you. Your observations, your suggestions, your criticism will be taken. And after scrutinizing everything, the committee will make a report. The people participation in the legislative process is ensured by means of this process. And intellectuals are not intellectual, their inputs can be very well taken. It should be taken. According to me, it should be taken. That is why government publishing the bills in the official gazette, and also when it is being scrutinized by the parliamentary standing committees, their committees will also give public notification in the newspapers. It will be public. Any person who is concerned with this bill can very well give suggestions, critical evaluation of the bill. If the concrete positive suggestions or very, very valuable suggestions are made, they will be invited to make presentation before the committee. Committee will hear them, and after hearing, the committee will make their own recommendations. So that scrutiny is also there. It is not the MPs alone. The people are also getting an opportunity to take part in the legislative process by publishing in the official gazette and by inviting their suggestions. Is it mandatory to follow the decision of a standing committee on a particular bill by the parliament when it will come back to the house for passing? No. The department related standing committees recommendations are only persuasive in nature. It is not mandatory to accept the suggestions made by the parliamentary standing committees. But when it goes to the select committee and joint committee, the bill will come to the house after the scrutiny as a new bill. The bill will come with the suggestions. A new drafted bill will be coming with the suggestions of the select committee or the standing committee. So that is the difference between the standing and select committee and the standing committee. Standing committee's recommendations are only persuasive in nature. The other thing, it will come, but it depends on the pleasure of the house to accept it or not to accept it. Your views on epidemic disease ordinance passed recently. Epidemic ordinance passed, it is not passed recently. It is an ordinance, it is printing, I think it is during the colonial period, this is there, I think so, I am not sure. But Kerala state government has passed one ordinance this in order to address the epidemic situation. Now it is not an epidemic, it is a pandemic situation. My view is that ordinance route of legislation itself is not good. And another point I would like to share with you, nowadays the fundamental rights, the civil rights, all rights are being taken away by the government in the name of this pandemic situation. I don't feel that this is correct. Why? Because you can impose reasonable restrictions on the fundamental rights and civil rights, but taking away all these rights, it is not fair and proper. That is my personal opinion. And another question is, which process is easier, amending a current law or passing of a new law? Both are equally, both are equally important. Why? Because the process is more or less same. If you want to amend an existing law, the same procedure has to be followed. If you want to move a fresh law, the same procedure has to be followed. So both are one and the same. The existing act can be amended, that bill will be called the amendment bill. If it is an original fresh bill, that will be called a fresh bill. Both are same, the process is the same, so there is no difference. What is appropriation bill and supplementary law? Appropriation bill means even after passing the budget, you have not supplementary law but supplementary demands. See, that is the budget process. I will explain it. When the budget is presented, There are demands for grants are there. Each ministry has a demand for grant. This much crores of rupees, this ministry demands this much crores of rupees for these purposes. That is what is called demands for grants. The demands for grants have to be voted. You must understand one thing, that each and every penny spent out of the consolidated fund of India is voted by the parliament. The government cannot spend even a single paise from the consolidated fund of India without voting, without sanction, without approval of the parliament. So every demands, more than 110 demands are there. Each ministry, law ministry, urban ministry, labor ministry, home ministry, foreign affairs ministry, parliamentary affairs ministry, agriculture ministry, defense ministry, all these ministries will come with a proposal, grant, we require this much amount for this year. That will be consolidated, that will be presented. That is what is called demands for grants. Supplementary demands for grants, I will come later. These demands for grants have to be passed, voted by the parliament. That alone is not sufficient to use the amount. After passing the demands for grants, the government has to come with an appropriation bill. That means the government seeking the leave of the house, government seeking the sanction or approval of the house, that the government may be permitted to spend the money which is being spelt out in the past in the demands for grants. So mere passing of the demands for grants will never entail the government to spend the money. If you want to spend the money, the appropriation bill has to be passed. That this money has to be, the demands for grants made by various ministries may be appropriated from the consolidated fund of India, for which a bill has to be brought before the parliament, and the bill has to be passed by the parliament. Then only the governments can spend the money. That means appropriating from the consolidated fund of India this much amount from this category for particular ministries. That is what is called an appropriation bill. So budget, demands for grants. After passing the demands for grants, you have to appropriation bill has to be passed. Then only governments can spend money. Then what is meant by supplementary demands for grants? After passing the budget, subsequent expenditure may take place. Subsequent to the passing of the budget is passed before March 31st. After that, subsequent expenditure which is not anticipated at the time of presenting the budget may come. At that time, the government may come with supplementary demands for grants. Again, an appropriation bill has to be passed. That is what is called supplementary demands for grants and appropriation bill. Another question is, what is the concept of joint sitting under Article 108? Yes, I forgot to mention about it. By virtue of Article 108 of the Constitution, a joint sitting of the House is required. Joint sitting of the House may comes, when every calendar year before the assembly, before the parliament summons, there will be having a joint session of the House. The Honorable President of India will address, that is the starting of the session of a particular calendar year, what is called in a joint session. And in 108, another provision is, joint House will be there when Lok Sabha passes a bill, Rajya Sabha disapproves a bill, again transmitted to the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha is not accepting the recommendation of the Rajya Sabha. So when such a conflict within the making of law comes, the government has an option to convene the joint House. We had so many experience. I have also participated during the time. I am not remembering that TADA, in the case of TADA, replacing TADA, there was a bill. At that time, there was a Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. There was a dispute. Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha passed. Rajya Sabha did not pass. Then government has gone for summoning the joint houses, and the joint houses parliament. Because if suppose the government do not have the majority in Rajya Sabha, In such time, but Lok Sabha, they are having ample number of members of parliament. When the joint house is convened, definitely they will get the majority. In such cases, in order to pass the legislation, joint house will be convened. And there are so many instances by which joint house was convened and bills were passed. That is Article 108. And another question is, the ordinance passed by the President, if not passed as an act by Parliament, then what will be the effect of that act already done in the ordinance? This is a very complicated situation. Suppose an ordinance pronounced by the President is not passed by the government, then the government fails. Morally, the government has no authority to continue in office. Why? Because the law made by the parliament is so no law made by the executive is rejected by the parliament means it is a no confidence on the government. Parliament is disapproving the law made by the executive means government fails in the parliament. Morally, the government has no right to continue in office because their legislation is rejected by the parliament means it is indirectly we can say that it is a disapproval motion. We can very well say that the disapproval motion is accepted means the government has to resign. Then the government has no moral authority to continue in the office because so many things might have done in pursuance of the ordinance. What will we do? So many complicated issues will also come. So normally the government, if an ordinance is not replaced, or if the disapproval motion is carried by the parliament, definitely the government has no authority to continue in the office. That is a political position, I would like to say. And another question is, can a majority less opposition prevent passing of a bill which is against the public? No. The rule of majority is in parliamentary democracy. So if you do not have the majority, nothing could be done. Whatever be the amendment which you move, whatever be the good thing you say, and whatever the good legislative proposals come from a private member need not be accepted if you do not have majority. That is the principle of majority in parliamentary democratic system. Principle of majority will apply. So many other questions are also coming. Now it's time to wind up, I think. Sometimes the government misuse the provision related to money bill. Please elaborate the scope of a money bill. Sometimes the government, yes, that is what I have explained. Finance bill is a money bill. Along with the budget, government is introducing or government is presenting a finance bill also. In that finance bill, they are incorporating so many legislation. I will cite one example. During the time of late Arun Jaitley ji, 51 acts were amended through the finance bill. For example, I can very well tell this Green Tribunal Act. The tenure of the Green Tribunal chairman was reduced from 5 years to 3 years because the government want to reduce the period for some other political purposes. The Green Tribunal is nothing to do with the money bill. It has nothing to do with Article 110(1) of the Constitution of India. Like that way, so many other legislations were also passed, incorporating it in the finance bill. That is not at all fair, that we cannot concede to that fact. So it is against all principles. I myself have raised objections, and a speaker has given a ruling that the government must try to avoid this thing. Such a positive ruling I got it, but nothing to do because the government is having the majority. What to do? So that is a way by which that is a new precedent which is created. If you do not have the majority in the House, in the Rajya Sabha, some legislations can be incorporated within the finance bill by which you can make law. That is not a good precedent. Any provision of internship under you or any MP can select anybody for internship. There is no problem for it. I don't have any interns with me so far. Myself is doing my work and my office assistant. They are doing the work helping me. Much hard work is required to do all these things. Anyway, interns are good for assisting the members of parliament. And another question is, sir, shouldn't people have the right to recall the representatives in order to ensure better accountability? That is a political proposal that is pending since long. I think in certain countries there is a provision to recall. I think so. I am not sure. Recall the members of parliament or the people's representatives. I am not sure about it. Anyway, in our country there is no such provision to recall the representatives in order to ensure better accountability. Such proposal is there. And another question is, who decides the required time slot given to MPs? It's absolutely the speaker. It depends on the strength of the party. That is also very important. I am a single member party, but I am getting most of the time not because of the strength of the party, by quoting the rules, provisions, precedents, conventions, point of order, moving amendments, for which time is not a problem. So by invoking the provisions of the rules of procedure and conduct of business, and by invoking the constitutional provisions, I am intervening in the debates, I am intervening in the most of the time. It is not because of my party strength I am getting time. So anyway, according to me, I will share my experience with you, because you are all the budding parliamentarians and the students of the constitution or constitutional students. Definitely, I can very well say that if an effective member of parliament, whether he belongs to a small party or a big party, if you go through the rules of procedure, if you are convinced with the constitutional provisions, if you are aware of the parliamentary practice and procedure, if you are having the customs, traditions, conventions and precedents, if you have about things, and suppose if you are hardworking, definitely you will get ample of opportunities to intervene in the debates, in the discussions. So many provisions are there in the rules of procedure by which a member can do. In order to ask a question, party strength is not considered in so many aspects. So there are a lot of chances by which you can very well intervene in the parliamentary debates and discussions. And another question is, how many bills can be presented on the same issue? That is identical bill. There is a provision. Normally identical bills cannot be passed. On a subject matter, any number of bills can be passed, but all the bills should be comprehensive. Comprehensive means all matters regarding a particular topic, particular subject matter should be comprehensively covered in a bill. That is good drafting of the bill. In the legislative process, drafting is very, very important. Who is doing the drafting? The drafting is being made by the bureaucrats, the executive. Actually, they are the lawmakers. They are bringing the law. Though the political executive, the ministry is bringing and introducing the bill, actually the bill is drafted by the legislative department of the law ministry. The legislative proposal is muted from the concerned administrative ministry. You see, if you want to pass a transgender bill, if you want to pass another bill, it will come within the Department of Social Justice. So the Ministry of Social Justice has to move a proposal to the law ministry. We want to have this type of a bill or law. Then the law ministry will make it in the format of a law, so a bill. And the bill again will go to the ministry, and then the interministerial discussions will take place. After interministerial discussions, this will go to the cabinet, and the ministry both ministries have to approve, and then it will go to the cabinet. After passing the cabinet, it will come to the parliament. So actually, the drafting of the bill is very, very important. Comprehensive drafting is required. That is good legislation. And another question is, can a law student do internship in law on other ministry? I don't think within the ministry internship is not possible, but with the MPs internship is permissible. And nowadays in parliament also, the parliament has also started a scheme for internship for the students. You can very well apply. Fellowship is there. You will be getting allowances also, and you can very well apply for that fellowship. Parliament, there is a parliament research wing is there. There is an institute and research wing under the chairmanship of the Honorable Speaker is there. You can very well apply for the fellowship, and that's a good thing for studying the parliamentary procedure, practice, and also the constitution. It's a very good thing. You can very well apply for, if you are interested in parliamentary procedure and political affairs, definitely you can very well do it by applying to the fellowship in the parliament. There is, I'm not remembering the address and mail now. You can very well check the parliament site and you can apply for it also. I think these are the number of questions which I have received. Now this is the right time to, may I conclude it with your permission? Another question also had asked, what is the importance of dissent towards a law of MP who belongs to a small party? See, at the beginning of the 17th session of this parliament, when we are appreciated, when the speaker is elected, the speaker will be admired and congratulated by the members both from the opposition and the treasury benches. The Prime Minister, Minister, all members will be present at the time of election of the speaker. When Sri Om Birla ji was elected, elevated to the chair of the speaker, all parties will get a chance to appreciate, get a chance to congratulate the speaker. I also got an opportunity to congratulate the speaker. I at that time said that the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister was also there, Narendra Modi ji was also there. I said that during the 16th Lok Sabha, hundreds of amendments were moved by me in various bills, in various motions. But unfortunately, none of the amendment is not carried. Even very positive, constructive suggestions proposals were made through amendments in supporting of the bill, in supportive of the government, but unfortunately, none of the amendments were approved or supported or carried by the government. The Honorable Prime Minister was looking at me and was smiling. And I am very grateful to the Honorable Prime Minister that subsequent to that there was a discussion among the cabinet ministers regarding this issue. Why we are not accepting the concrete constructive suggestions in the form of amendments from the opposition? That has to be discussed, because Parliament is for making good law. Good suggestions, constructive suggestions may come from the opposition side also. I have so many experiences. Subsequently, these amendments will be taken care of. This is the question, what is the impact of an amendment moved from the opposition, from the smaller party? As a smaller party member, I can very well gratuitously say that so many proposals at the time of moving the amendment, the government is not accepting the amendment. But when any subsequent amendment bill comes regarding the subject matter, these proposals were carried. So moving the amendment, it is having got its own impact is there. So intervening in debates, moving amendments, it is having its own impact, whether it is from a single party member or from a larger party member. So absolutely that is there, it is having its own impact. That is what is called parliamentary practice. Everybody, even our fellow members of parliament are also talking to me, why you are moving amendments? Nobody is accepting it. What is this? Yes, it is having impact. It is having its own persuasive effect on the government in drafting the bills in future. So dear friends, I think that it is already 1 hour 30 minutes. It's though we are not able to have an interactive session, a webinar of interactive session, though it was a Facebook live, I think I have answered more than 25 questions already I have answered. I am not sure whether it was fruitful or it was useful, fruitful and effective, but I have tried my level best to explain how to make a law and what is the impact of a lawmaking process. I am very grateful to you for giving me this opportunity to address you regarding a very important and interesting subject as far as me is concerned, because I am actively involving in the parliamentary procedures So it is definitely and indeed a pleasure and privilege, as I made in my opening remarks. I am thankful to Anshu Chowdhury, Dr. Anshu Chowdhury, who had the initiative in making this event, and all the university vice chancellor and the dean and all the office bearers. And also, I appeal to you all to go through my Facebook, that is NK Premachandran Official, in which I am posting almost all my debates and interventions in Parliament. I am posting it my official page, NK Premachandran Official, and I will thank to Dr. Anshu Chowdhury, all the university office bearers, department and student coordinator, and all the students who had a very patient hearing of this subject. And also I want to express my sincere thanks to my son PG Karthik. He has made all these efforts. I am not a technical expert on these issues. To have this presentation before you, and all your questions in the Facebook live is put it in writing and giving to me, and I can very well read it and tried my level best to make it understanding in order to clear the clouds of doubt among you. I hope that it was a fruitful session. According to me, it's indeed a pleasure. It's really a privilege. Once again, thanks to all. And let me wind up this session with grateful. And also, we are addressing the COVID-19 situation. Hope that this pandemic, we have to address this issue in a very serious way. And we are forced to come this way also because of this pandemic situation. Hope that we will meet after this pandemic. We will be getting an opportunity to have direct contact, or we can have such a meeting in future. With these words, once again I express my sincere thanks to you all, and with your permission may I wind up this live Facebook session.